Hey guys, this is God of Politics. Welcome back to a brand new video, but before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also join the Discord that is linked down in the description. But in today's video, I am doing my updated Battleground map. We are halfway through August. I said I was doing these Battleground maps now twice a month. Before I was doing them once a month, now I'm doing them twice a month. This is also my first Battleground map with Joe Biden's new vice presidential pick, Kamala Harris, the senator from California. Now, I do have a couple ratings changes in this map that you should stick around to see and watch the whole video for that. But, let's get started right off the bat. So, first of all, the safe states, as always, you have the usual safe states: Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Alaska, Utah, North Dakota, South Dakota, all of Nebraska except for the 2nd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and South Carolina. South Carolina is the only ratings change for these safe Republican states, moving from the likely margin to the safe margin there. And then for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I do believe they will win Washington, Oregon, California by safe margins. I also believe they will win Hawaii by safe margin, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine's 1st District, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, D.C. So that puts Joe Biden and Kamala Harris at 183 safe electoral votes, Donald Trump and Mike Pence at 125 safe electoral votes. So getting into these likely margin states, first for the Republicans, I do believe that they actually will not win any states by likely margins. This is kind of the trend that we've seen, that they haven't been winning any states by these 5 to 10 point margins, but they will win some more states, as you will see. But for the Democrats, I do believe first they will win the state of Nevada by a likely margin. You do have, a lot of liberal voters in this state. Bernie Sanders won the state in the primary. You also do have a high Latino population, which Joe Biden has so far struggled with, especially with the enthusiasm and being able to turn out those voters. We don't know whether he'll be able to do that, but Nevada polls have, consistently overestimated Republicans, and the polls right now show Joe Biden up by, an average of almost 7 percentage points, so it's hard to bet that he's not going to be able to win this state, as well as, you do have the suburbs of Las Vegas that will probably trend towards the Democrats as well, pushing it into the likely column, which I do expect that to be the case right now, as well as Colorado and New Mexico. These are both ratings changes. I formerly had both of these states at the safe margin. They are now being moved into the likely margin, and while we do have some polls showing that they are in the safe margin, you have to be aware that not all of these polls are very good. You have to, mostly only look at good pollsters, because of the fact that, bad pollsters show results that are all over the place, skewed either towards one party or another, their internal polls. So you have to make sure you're looking at the polls in an objective way. And, as the polls have shown that he's going to win it by a safe margin, but you can't necessarily take those at face value. And, again, in New Mexico, you have a high Latino population. In Colorado, you also have, suburban trends that are making the state more Democratic. In both of these states, I expect to trend towards the Democrats. It's just, I am moving it from safe to likely column, as well as, Donald Trump is gaining back some of that ground that he lost from when Joe Biden was pretty much at his high point then. And I also do believe another likely margin state will be the state of Minnesota. Minnesota is a state where you have, the Iron Range up in the north that is trending towards the Republicans, but then you do have the Minneapolis, St. Paul suburbs down in the southern part of the state that are trending more towards the Democrats, so they kind of offset each other. But at least for this election, you have a national environment that, at least for now, is more Democratic. It is going to make those suburban trends pretty large towards the Democrats, which at this point, at least, I will push it towards a likely margin. We've even had some polls from places like Trafalgar, which, if you don't know, always overestimates Republicans. Trafalgar did show that Joe Biden was up by 5 points in Minnesota. So, taking that at face value, you think he's doing actually quite well in the state of Minnesota. And then the final state that I will give him to him by a likely margin isn't really a state, but the popular vote win in the state of Maine, which I do believe he will win by a likely margin. If you look back at 2016, Hillary Clinton won Maine at large by 3 percentage points. I do expect Joe Biden to win by around 7, percentage points, something around that column. I do expect him to, do a lot better in Maine's 2nd District, as well as doing a little bit better in Maine's 1st District, which will give him a good popular vote win in Maine at large, giving him the victory by a likely margin. As well as one more thing is the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a state where you do have, a pretty substantial population of white voters. It is a very very white state, and Joe Biden struggled here in the primary, and so did, Kamala Harris, obviously dropping out of the race before the primaries even began. But, the polls have been pretty good for Joe Biden here, and Joe Biden can, feed off of some of those older voters that were with Donald Trump before, which I do believe can make it a likely margin state. And then the final state here is the state of Virginia, which I do believe will go by a likely margin here. This was formerly a safe state in my last video at the beginning of August. I am now pushing it into the likely column here. Virginia is the state that is trending towards the Democrats overall, and I'm not saying, in any case here that this state is going to become more Republican or even go to the Republicans. Democrats are going to be able to win it easily, but those Nova trends in Northern Virginia that are trending heavily towards the Democrats cannot be overcome by pretty much any other trend that is going to be a good and pretty big victory for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the state of Virginia. And you can already see that after these likely margin states, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are at 232 electoral votes. Donald Trump and Mike Pence are at 125 electoral votes. So Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, after the likely margin states, are already at the margin that Hillary Clinton was at in 2016, and she barely won states like Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, states like that. So getting into these lean margin states, first we have a big prize for Donald Trump and Mike Pence, and that is the state of Texas. Texas is a state I do believe Donald Trump will win by a lean margin here. We did have some polls showing that, for example, we had a Trafalgar poll showing Donald Trump up by 6 percentage points. That, historically does overestimate Republicans. And we've also had some polls that have shown Joe Biden actually winning in the state, but they are polls like Morning Consult, for example, which, do overestimate Democrats for the most part. And so you have to kind of, estimate how these pollsters are going to interpret. You have to interpret it in a certain way that makes it fair and objective. And at this point, at least, I would put Texas at a lean column. It is a state that overall is trending blue, and Republicans are going to have to worry about it in the future. I've made videos about this before, and many people are aware of this. I don't believe, at least for now, that Joe Biden is going to be able to win this state. He's actually putting some money in the state, which is not the most wise move, in my opinion. But we'll see how it actually impacts the race, whether some polls show Biden winning again. We'll see what happens. But right now, I will put that at a lean margin, which is actually changing my rating from tilt to lean. I did put this at a tilt margin. Now I'm putting it at a lean margin. I do believe Donald Trump has marginally improved in the state. He'll probably, at least for now, win it by around 2 to 3 percentage points. Then we have two more states here that he will win by lean margin. Those are states that are actually quite similar, Iowa and Ohio. Now, Iowa is a very swingy state. If you look at 2012, for example, Barack Obama won this state by 6 percentage points. Then you flash forward to 2016, where Donald Trump won this state by almost 10 percentage points. And so this is worrying for Donald Trump, for him to, only be winning the state by a couple percentage points. Some polls have shown that Joe Biden has actually been winning. Joe Biden has been, within the margin of error, and that is worrying for Donald Trump. But, this is still a Republican state. It is still a state that is trending towards the Republicans, and I do expect the Republicans to do well enough in these rural areas and, well enough in the suburbs of these smaller cities that we have in Iowa to be able to win the state by a lean margin. As for the state of Ohio, however, polls here and in Iowa way overestimated Democrats in 2016. If you look at Iowa and Ohio, they had Trump winning by around 3 percentage points, and then they overestimated them by 5 to 6 percentage points in Iowa and Ohio, respectively. So you have to assume that you're going to have similar issues with this in 2020, even though in 2012 it was the opposite, where it overestimated Republicans. And so it's hard to tell what's going to happen. But it is kind of hard to believe that Joe Biden would be, winning Ohio by 2.5 percentage points. That just is not something that you can, conclusively say is fair and accurate. And at least right now, I will put it at a lean Republican column, but this is another bad thing for Donald Trump, that this state is even close. For a state that's trending towards the Republicans, he should be doing much better. So after the lean Republican states, Donald Trump and Mike Pence are still, a good 45 electoral votes behind Joe Biden and Kamala Harris at 187 electoral votes to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's 232 electoral votes. Now that we get into the lean margin states, first, there is a district here, which is Nebraska's 2nd district. Now, people overlook this district. Nebraska's 2nd district is very suburban. It has exurbs and, the city of Omaha. And, it is going to be a problem for Republicans because of the suburbs that are trending blue, and it is very telling that the state, an area like Nebraska's second is competitive. Donald Trump won this district by 2 percentage points in 2016, and Donald Trump is going to have to improve on his margins if he really wants to show that this suburban trend is not just, temporary for 2016 or whatever. But I do believe that, at least for now, Joe Biden is doing very well in Nebraska's second district. We did have one poll that shut him up by around 7 percentage points. I don't necessarily think that's accurate. I think that, way overestimates Democrats' chances in the state. But I do expect Nebraska's second district to go to the Democrats by a lean margin, at least for now. And actually, we did forget Maine's second district. I do believe Maine's second district would go by a lean margin towards the Republican Party. Donald Trump and Mike Pence, won this by around 10 percentage points in 2016. And I do believe that they will do well in this district. But, the polls that we've seen so far have shown it closer. It is a very rural area, and it, you might see a little bit of a bucking of the trend compared to 2016. And I think that's what we will see. And at least for now, I'm going to put it at a lean Republican state. But then continue with these Democratic lean margin states. First, I do believe the state of Wisconsin will go by a lean margin, as well as Michigan and Pennsylvania. We'll just fill all of these in, which already gets Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to the 270 vote mark, actually the 279, but past the 270 threshold they need to win. As for Wisconsin, this is a state that is probably going to go to the Republicans most out of these 4 states here. The 4 states that, 4 of the 6 states that flipped in the Midwest in 2016. And Wisconsin is a state that Democrats used to do a lot better than they do now. They do have a Democratic governor, though they did win the popular vote in the state Senate elections. They do have a Democratic senator, but it is going to be hard for Democrats to win, especially flipping that seat, Donald Trump winning it in 2016. But the polls, which did overestimate Republicans in 2012, did overestimate Democrats in 2016, are showing a pretty comfortable win for Biden. But I am going to put it at a lean margin, at least for now. Michigan, I'm also going to put it at a lean margin. This is probably the most blue state out of these 3 here: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. The polls have shown it, the trends have shown it, the elections we've seen recently have shown it, and I do believe that, Donald Trump's basically given up on this state, and this is, again, the state of the race right now. Donald Trump has actually pulled money out of the state, which is a worrying sign for him if he wants to be able to win it. And again, this is the election what it is now, and so Donald Trump pulling money out of him is going to lose some support in this state. And even if he puts money back in it in September, October, it is going to have a lot of ground to gain, and that is going to be a problem. But in the state of Pennsylvania, I've talked about this a lot. Joe Biden has the connections here. He lives here, near here. He was born here. He was nicknamed the third senator, and he has a lot of appeal to those white working class voters here that Donald Trump won a lot of those voters over compared to 2012. But the polls are showing a good win for Joe Biden, which actually weren't too far off in 2016, especially when you factor in undecided voters, which at this point I don't think are going to break to Donald Trump in a huge manner as compared to what they did in 2016, which is going to help Joe Biden and Democrats across the state. And at least for now, I am putting it in a lean Democratic state. And so after the lean states, we see that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have already crossed the 270 vote threshold. There are 279 electoral votes here. Donald Trump and Mike Pence are way down at 188 electoral votes. They're getting these 4 tilt margin states that are in the South here in the Sun Belt. First, I do believe that Georgia will go to Donald Trump and Mike Pence by a tilt margin. We've had some good polls that have showed Joe Biden up. If we look at the new Survey USA poll, which is an A-rated pollster on FiveThirtyEight, showed Joe Biden up by 2 percentage points here. That is a pretty substantial victory considering that this is a state that was won by Donald Trump by almost 6 percentage points in 2016. And the suburban trends that we're seeing in this state, in the Atlanta suburbs, are huge and cannot be ignored. If you look at these rural areas, Republicans are pretty much maxed out in these rural areas. And if you look at the suburban areas, however, Democrats pretty much only have room to gain. And so that is what I do expect them to do. And at least for now, the polls are showing mixed signals. They're showing it's going to be very close, though. And that's why I am putting it in a tilt state. But I am, at least for now, putting it in a tilt Republican, which is the same rating as before. And also to note about Michigan and Pennsylvania, I am changing my rating on these from likely to lean in both of these states here. Georgia, I am leaving at tilt R. Now, those are the only tilt states for the Republicans. These 3 states here, Arizona, North Carolina, Florida, I am putting all at tilt Democrat. Now, I am changing Florida from the lean Democratic column to the tilt Democratic column, and North Carolina and Arizona are both staying the same. Now, first, to start off with North Carolina, this is a very hard one to predict because the polls on RCP show that it's pretty much a tie. On FiveThirtyEight, it shows Biden with about a 2% margin of victory here. And so that is very, hard to predict for either side. And I don't do toss-ups. I'm going to choose it for one side or the other. But you do, for example, have Tom Tillis here, who's not very popular in the state, which is going to, in some ways, drag Trump down here. In the polls we have seen, many have shown Trump down in the state as well. And you do have suburban trends in areas like Mecklenburg County, in the Raleigh suburbs, and, many of those areas that are becoming more Democratic. And while Republicans have more area to gain, more room to gain in the rural areas, it's which one of those has a bigger effect. And so this really could go either way. North Carolina, at least for now, I'm putting in a tilt Democratic column, but it really could go either way. As for Florida, Florida's that state that is always very, very close. It does love incumbents, hasn't gone to a non-incumbent since 1980, hasn't gone to a non-Republican incumbent since, 1924 or something like that. So that's very hard for somebody to overcome. But the polls, which were very accurate in 2016, are just not showing the Republicans are doing very well here with Donald Trump and Mike Pence. They're showing him down, by a pretty substantial margin. We've seen, not the best pollsters. We've seen polls like Quinnipiac actually batting up 13, which doesn't even make any sense. But I do believe Joe Biden would eke out a narrow victory in the state of Florida, being able to, gain some ground back in some of these areas like Tampa Bay and doing, better in terms of turnout in areas like that, in areas like Miami-Dade County, Broward County, areas like that, the suburbs. And so I do expect him to narrowly win it by a tilt margin. Then the final state here, Arizona. Arizona is a state where you've had huge trends over to Democrats, especially in the suburbs of Phoenix in Maricopa County. Now, Maricopa County is a huge county. It's got 4 million people here, and it's looking like Joe Biden could win Maricopa County. And if you look at 2018, for example, Democrats won their first Senate seat there in 20-something years. And so Republicans are losing their grip on this state. And it's a sign of that overall trend towards the Democrats in terms of these suburban areas. And it's not really as much about the Latinos as you might think, especially since Joe Biden actually might not do very well amongst Latinos compared to how Democrats have done historically. He might do almost as bad as John Kerry did in 2004. But the thing that's going to make this state blue is the suburban trends in Maricopa County. And I do expect those trends to be big enough to be able to flip the state. The polls have shown it. The turnout has shown it. The voter registration data has shown it. And I do believe the Democrats are going to be able to win. But overall, looking at the map here, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are at 334 electoral votes. Donald Trump and Mike Pence are at 204 electoral votes. This would make Joe Biden the 46th president of the United States and Kamala Harris the vice president of the United States. So thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also join the Discord that is linked down in the description. So thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys later.